What is going on, y'all? Faiz Sports Talk back at it with another video talking some NFL here to talk about the Chicago Bears and talking about the report that Matt Nagy is expected to return as the head coach of the Chicago Bears next season. So wanted to talk about that, give my quick thoughts on it. Before I do, if you're new to the channel, guys, welcome. Make sure to go ahead and subscribe if you have not done so already. Tons of NFL Bears videos every single week, and it will continue in the offseason, folks. Don't worry about that. I will continue in the offseason. So make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're following me on all my social media platforms. So go ahead and do all that. With that being said, I have a lot to say about this. Let's get into it. So this report comes from the NFL Network and Ian Rappaport, which is a pretty legitimate source. So you can go ahead and pretty much believe it that Matt Nagy is expected to return as the head coach of the Chicago Bears next season. Now, I had been meaning to talk about this. It actually came out a few days ago. And the only reason I didn't was because, we had the Bears getting qualifying for the playoffs. It's just been such an up and down season. And this kind of just came and went, right? It just got brushed to the side. But no, it's very important to talk about this, all right? So let's talk about it. What was my first reaction when I saw this report from Ian Rappaport? Well, I got to tell you, my first reaction was not too surprised. I'm not too surprised because here's why, all right? And this is not going to be defending Matt Nagy. We're going to take a huge look at everything, right? We're going to take a 10,000-foot view analysis of this whole situation. But hear me out first. The reason I say I'm not surprised is this. If you take out his name, and if I told you hired a head coach and he won Coach of the Year his first year, and he made the playoffs 2 out of his 3 seasons that he's been head coach for your team, and also he's never had a losing record, you would think he's a very good head coach, and you would say, oh, there's no way I'm firing this guy. But now you put the name on, it's Matt Nagy, and now you understand how crazy it sounds. But have Bears fans and, the speculation around Matt Nagy, have we been crazy to have his name be on the hot seat? Right? You hear all that. Playoffs in 2 out of his 3 years, never had a losing season. Coach of the Year his first year. Not to mention the fact that the Bears had made the playoffs multiple years prior to Matt Nagy getting here. I mean, all of the years John Fox was head coach, all the years Mark Trestman was head coach, never made the playoffs. But here comes Matt Nagy, and we make the playoffs. You hear all that, and you think, this guy's on the hot seat? Really? Yes. So here's the thing. The reason Matt Nagy was on the hot seat was because even though the Bears have won under his tenure, it has not been in the fashion that we had assumed he would get us to. Now you might be thinking, I don't care how we win as long as we win. Hold on there. Matt Nagy came in as a quarterback guru and an offensive genius. Okay? Those were the 2 things that we thought we were getting with Matt Nagy. Quarterback guru. Fix Mitchell Trubisky, or I guess develop him and improve him. 2018 started off great. Mitchell Trubisky, obviously, we all know, made the Pro Bowl that year, was 3rd in QBR, had a phenomenal year. Bears go 12-4, make the playoffs, and then regressed. And then 2019 gets benched. So he went, straight up and then crashing down. So you didn't develop Mitchell Trubisky like he should have been developed. Number 2, offensive genius. The offense has never been a top 5, let alone top 10 offense in Matt Nagy's tenure here. So both of the things that Matt Nagy we thought was bringing to the table, he never brought. Now, how have the Bears still been able to win even though Matt Nagy has not done those things? Well, a couple of reasons. Number 1, our defense for the majority of his tenure here has been fairly elite. But that's more credit to Ryan Pace, who built the defense. I know everyone wants to bash on Ryan Pace, and especially for, obviously the Mitchell Trubisky pick, and they can, but you got to give credit where credit is due. He did build his defense. And the other reason why Matt Nagy's had success, and this is credit to Matt Nagy, is that one of his best attributes is that he is a good leader of men. Matt Nagy is a guy players like playing for. And that means something, right? That does mean something, folks, because I'm telling you right now, Mark Trestman was a great X's and O's guy, but nobody respected him. He had no command of the locker room, none. So for Matt Nagy, guys like playing for him. They like him. He's a good leader of men. He's a good leader overall. So I believe those things, him being a good leader, never losing the locker room, and having an elite defense helped him so that the Bears never had a losing record under him, and they've made the playoffs now 2 out of the last 3 years. So that is the reason why Matt Nagy's been on the hot seat. So I don't think it's as crazy as people make it out to seem. That's why I always say context is important. Now let's talk about whether or not I believe Matt Nagy deserves to stay an extra season. So I thought long and hard about this too, whether or not I believe Matt Nagy deserves to stay an extra season or potentially more. Technically, I think his contract is till like 2023. He signed a 5-year deal in 2018. But when, I thought about it, I keep going back to this. I believe Mitchell Trubisky and Matt Nagy have kind of had the same type of career paths, right? Like they started off really hot and then tailored off. But I'll tell you this much. With Matt Nagy, you don't want to keep firing head coaches in a span of 2 to 3 years. So I mentioned Mark Trestman, John Fox. They got canned in 2 years, 3 years. Before that, it was Lovie Smith, who obviously has been the Bears coach for multiple years, and deservedly so. Obviously, he got us to a Super Bowl. But you don't want to create this culture of giving a coach 2 to 3 years and then firing him, especially when there has been results regardless of how they got there. So with Matt Nagy, just looking at the resume, you understand why, you think the Bears want to keep Matt Nagy. All right? Because, folks, there's a lot of bad teams in this league. There's a lot of unstable organizations. You don't want to be the Jets. You don't want to be the Jaguars. You don't want to be this team that if you don't win 10 games, you're fired. Like, no coach is going to want to come to Chicago then, right? If the expectation is the second you come in first year, you have to get us to the playoffs, second year Super Bowl, or you're done, nobody's going to want to come here. And that's part of my second reason here, which is there's a lot of head coach openings right now. There's a lot of them, folks. A lot of teams need head coaches. And so if you get rid of Matt Nagy, it's not like, oh, there's the guy out there and let's just grab him. No, there's 6, 7 other teams waiting to grab him, right? All these assistants we hear about, all these coordinators, Robert Saleh, you hear about maybe Urban Meyer's coming back, Jim Harbaugh from college. Like, you hear all of these things, right? And all these teams that need coaches that actually have vacancies at their head coaching positions, like the Lions, the Texans, they're already starting their search. So the Bears would be behind. So I say all that to say is this. Stability is important. I think Matt Nagy, just based off of resume, does deserve another year. And to his credit, even though he screwed up by benching Mitchell Trubisky, he did acknowledge, the fact that he is not the right guy to call plays, and he handed it over. That's what turned the season around, right? Bringing back Mitchell Trubisky and handing over play calling. So to me, one of the biggest things that a coach can have, which is a good trait, is adjustments. Not just in-game, but also overall. Matt Nagy made an adjustment, gave the play calling up to Bill Lazor, turned the Bears season around. Now they're in the playoffs. So to me, folks, just by judging the record that Matt Nagy has, I know a lot of people, aren't the biggest Matt Nagy fans. I'm not either. I've been very critical of him. But I do feel like there is something to be said about stability. If this was a 6-10 season, a 5-11, 4-12, whatever have you, Matt Nagy would be gone. But the man is a good leader. He continues to find a way to make it work. He's been good at delegating now. So hopefully he learns from this. Hopefully he gets better. But it's the same kind of argument for Mitchell Trubisky. Fine, let's get rid of Mitchell Trubisky. He's not great, right? But who's out there? Who's out there, right? We're not saying bring Mitchell Trubisky back and sign him to a 5-year deal. Same reason we're not saying sign Matt Nagy to a 5-year deal. But we are saying if you're going to get rid of him, do you have an adequate replacement in mind? Because if you don't, let's hold your horses. So that's kind of where I am with Matt Nagy, folks. So I don't hate this. I think, the fact that, depending on what happens in the playoffs, obviously, it might play a part in it. But for the most part, I do think Matt Nagy comes back, and I'm okay with that because, like I said, who else is out there right now? And you want stability. You don't want to turn into this organization that keeps firing coaches left and right. So that's where I'm at. Let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment down below if you agree with me or disagree. As always, thanks for watching.